in cyber domain, you don't really have the concept of time. You don't have the concept of distance, meaning that whenever we're talking about the physical world, and you can expect that there's maybe the state that is also protecting you from certain threats, you don't have that luxury in the cyber domain. And this is where Security Operations Center really comes into play.
Welcome to the Digital Government Podcast. Tune in to discover the future of governance and ways of getting there.
Looking back at 2024 and looking forward to 2025, this seems like a perfect time to discuss about the critical role of security operations centers, their role in defending against today's sophisticated cyber threats and, or more generally, the SOC development as a new rising trend in cybersecurity. The eGovernance Academy's experience in SOC development focuses around a couple of projects that we're doing. One of them is about the cybersecurity rapid response for Albania, Montenegro, and North Macedonia, where the EGA focuses on increased operational cyber capacities of supporting the build-up of the governmental CSIRTs and SOCs in Montenegro, for example, but also in Albania and North Macedonia. My name is Merle Maigre. I am the head of the cybersecurity program at eGovernance Academy, and it is really a pleasure to have here at the podcast studio with me Margus, Vaino, head of cybersecurity and new businesses at Telia, the largest Nordic telecommunications company, and Paas, head of security operations at Telia and former chief information security officer at RIA. Welcome.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Hello.
To get us going on this topic, let me first ask you, what is a SOC, a Security Operations Center, and why should we care about this topic?
Having an academic education, I like to start with definition. And in simple words, a Security Operations Center is a physical or virtual facility designed to protect an organization from cybersecurity threats. That's very simple. Of course, there might be some more definitions, but I like to actually Gartner definition where Gartner is adding actually that the SOC is providing centralized and consolidated cybersecurity incident prevention, detection, and response capabilities.
Could we compare it perhaps then to an elaborate organization, its system that usually people could imagine either live or in movies that a large organization has its perimeter controlled from intruders and alerts that sort of like has all these cameras up that alerts them about the suspicious activity and then takes action when something goes wrong. Is that comparable to SOC in the digital world?
Absolutely. And I'll take the chance to actually go a step back or take a step back and say that it might sound as a cliche, but in cyber domain, you don't really have the concept of time. You don't have the concept of distance, meaning that whenever we're talking about the physical world, and you can expect that there's maybe the state that is also protecting you from certain threats, you don't have that luxury in the cyber domain. And this is where Security Operations Center really comes into play.
Continuing on this topic of getting the definitions clarified, also the terms of CERT, CSIRT, that is a computer emergency response team or the computer security incident response team, and SOC, Security Operations Center, often are in the whole conversation used somewhat interchangeably. Can you please explain me what's the difference between a CSIRT and a SOC, if there is any?
For us, the main difference is that as regards to CSIRTs, it's more government entity-based. And in our case, as we speak about SOC, Security Operations Center, then we don't really differentiate between what is the background of a certain entity. We provide that service regardless if that's the case.
For me, the SOC is more operational, aimed towards companies or organizations protecting their environment. CSIRT is more or less like helping and giving the first line support for different organizations or companies and managing and trying to help actually on governmental level to keep up to security.
So understanding that while there is some common aspects for both, the SOCs are much more common, particularly in the are more relevant perhaps in the for wider organizations and also much more used in the private sector, like for your case in Telia, a telco company, or any other critical information entity. So having established the terms, what would you say is the importance and role of a SOC for you and your experience, for example?
Okay. Maybe I start actually explaining that at Telia we have two security teams. The one team is protecting Telia as an organization from hackers, bad actors, taking care about our own infrastructure. The second team, what I'm responsible for, and where we build together with Martin, helping our customers to solve their security problems and providing different security services and solutions.
Well, the primary function of a SOC is to help to detect different types of incidents, and even better if we can prevent those. That's one part, but I would also add the point that for a client or potential client, it actually helps to focus on its core business and not so much deal with the cybersecurity in its operational part.
Am I correct in building on what you're saying, thinking then that as cyber attacks themselves go more and more sophisticated, so does the role of SOC, so that you try to help your clients, as you very rightly say, to focus on their core business while you help them to protect against cyber attacks. And the role of SOCs thereby for various organizations in the world is rising because the cyber attacks are rising, and thus there is the logic of setting up different SOCs all around.
Absolutely. There's definitely a reason behind that. Most of the clients probably don't have the necessary resources nor the will to go through all those operational issues on a daily basis. It's something where we can help. Most probably they don't have the tools and also the competence to do that. Putting that on one side, and from the other side, that 70% of all the cyber incidents is actually caused by a human factor, then you need to work on that. And this is where our SOC as a service definitely comes into play.
You claim that indeed there is a large role for the human factor. How would you describe the threat picture more generally? Because clearly the increase of cyber threats is very closely linked with the growing and rising importance of SOCs. When looking back at last year, we have seen it here in Estonia that the cybersecurity attacks against Estonia as a country are on the rise. We have that message. We hear that message a lot from the national RIA agency. There are threats like zero-day exploits and APTs, advanced persistent threats, that are on the rise. So thus, SOCs needs to be on the rise. How do you see the threat picture evolving from Telia? Because as the largest telco company in the whole Nordics, you probably see a beyond Estonia.
Yes, of course. As we see a much wider picture, we have a very good overview of what's happening on the security landscape. Maybe a rule of the thumb is that every year, 25% increase of cyber threats. And it has been so last 4 or 5 years. So if you can imagine, every year 25% more attacks, more threats. And it's different reasons for that. Of course, AI is playing a crucial role. Also that we are more and more connected. There are more devices on the network. Also rise of awareness. People know more, organizations know more. They actually looking for how to be more secure, and it's all together means that more and more security and the SOC service is needed.
I will once again take the chance to take one step back and go even more global. And there's statistics which stresses that from the moment that the incident has happened till the moment that it is being contained, it takes no less than 277 days. It is 9 months. So you can imagine how much you can actually affect the company or the client in that time. So we definitely need to get those numbers down.
And if you put in perspective, cybersecurity and everything around the cybersecurity has become a big business. So, and there are like statistics that it's basically third largest economy in the world. So more money involved into cybersecurity and also threats. It means that more bad actors are coming to the play, and also it means that we need to defend, we need to protect from hackers.
Good. So those listeners of ours who've now become sufficiently alert and want and understand that they need a SOC, how do you get started with building a SOC?
We can help actually our customers with all the steps, building a SOC and providing a good service for them. But in general, I recommend to start actually with the paper and pen and start to think about that. What is the strategy? And that's to start actually clarify business objectives. Why do company or organization need a SOC? And then start to think about people, processes, and technologies. And also think about that to build a good SOC, it requires a good experience, huge investment, and also time and good people. It's not easy. So it's always question, do you want to have inside or in-house SOC, or are you ready to buy as a service from different companies? And of course, we are recommending to outsource some of the or all functions of SOC, because today's scope of the SOC is so wide that it's very difficult to cover all the areas. But yes, start with a strategy, and that's the first point.
Based on Telia's experience, we can confirm that building a SOC is a process, and as Margus mentioned, it takes time. It takes resources. So from the company's or client's side, we always put forward the question, do you want to do it yourself, or we can help you in that process? So it takes time.
Good point. So I understand one of the trying to kind of like reflect back to understand if I got it right. Start with pen and paper, understand your businesses and processes. Also, I think it's useful to understand the organization's goal and structure and resources available, as you rightly say, whether it makes sense to have an in-house security operations center or consider having it outsourced security as a service. And also regarding the organization, I guess it's useful to understand if monitoring is paramount for your organization's structure, and if it allows for a centralization of that monitoring in one physical or logical location, then also I guess there might be an advantage in having a SOC if you so decide to have it in-house. But it's an interesting topic, I think, of this choice between in-house and outsourced as a service. And I guess even if you have it outsourced, you still need to invest into some know-how and skill sets of in-house, so that for that service you could have partners who could have a conversation with whatever company is providing the SOC. So what, on your view, are the key roles to be filled within a SOC and ideally, and what are the, if you could perhaps outline some absolutely necessary sort of profiles that organizations should have within their own list of people to be able to protect them against cyber attacks?
I will take the chance to take a step back and maybe explain also the background of choosing between different models of a SOC, and why is it essential to do the homework before. I will take the chance to quote Rob Joyce, who is the former Director General of National Security Agency, and he has this famous saying that you know what you use, we know what you have, which might give the understanding or the hint that unless you really know your business process or you know the assets, what you're using, or in another case you don't know, it most probably will hit you quite hard. So from our side, we definitely need somebody as a partner from the client side, which was also brought up in the question in itself. But going to the SOC structure and profiles and roles, there are classic roles that need to be filled. Definitely we need good analysts or excellent analysts. But in addition, and which is the direction that we're moving towards, we really need to automate. We need to automate and be scalable, meaning that the role of engineers is definitely growing and fast. So these are the two roles or two types of roles that you need to put your attention to and focus in your hiring and growing your businesses.
All right. Well, I understand that's a sort of like a good basis of what needs to be in-house, sine qua non, so to say, even if you're planning to outsource it. But I can think of from the EGA's experience quite a number of countries that still would like to have in-house SOC at governmental level or at organizational level. In that case, would you care to expand in addition to the engineer's role, which is very interesting, and an analyst, which I understand quite logically needs to be there? Are there any key skill sets or roles that need to be filled within a SOC? Probably some lead that leads the technical responses to cyber incidents. What about digital forensic specialists? Incident handlers, and also the whole field of vulnerability management and threat intelligence. What would you say about those roles and more?
There are different ways to build a SOC. And there has been a huge development or evolution over the years. And we at Telia tried to build a so-called modern SOC. I try to explain in simple words that the old ways to build a SOC is basically like a NOC or Network Operations Center. So basically, it's inspired by IT help desk philosophy. There are like layers, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, different levels, ticketing, and old SOCs are focusing for alert pipelines, and it's paired to the analysts. And the problem is that it's not scalable. It's not scalable because we have more and more devices, more and more applications, more and more people at the organization, and they all produce alerts, and it's too much to handle in like a old traditional SOC. What is the modern SOC? Definitely tries to address these problems, and first of all, at modern SOC, teams are organized by the skills, not to the different levels or tier-based approach. And all the processes are structured around the threats, not the alerts. And definitely high-level automation and use of AI and machine learning. And automation is usually made via SOAR, like platforms, and AI is definitely once again an important tool. And also what is describing like modern SOC is like the threat intelligence is heavily consumed and created internally and also shared with other part of organization. So these are the latest development on the SOC area.
I think it's important indeed to understand that skills are the ones that lead the development. It would be interesting to understand what skills do you think are crucial in that SOC development, but also what tools can best support the SOC analyst workflow, because while I understand that that modern SOCs are using a different approach than the very traditional ones, still if there are some in-house sort of like wish to have some in-house positions, there's rather than having the whole SOC as a service, I think you could scale or at least hope to ease the burden of those people there for them to use different commercial and maybe open source tools that are provided as a service that makes their life hopefully a little easier, so that not everything is expected for a SOC workers to do hands by hands, but that they can use some outsourced services among the tool sets. So what skills, what tools could best support a SOC analyst workflow?
Well, it's a good question. Let's start from that, and we definitely see that the number of different tools that one really great quality analyst needs to use is overwhelmingly large. Meaning that we start with different EDR, CM, NDR solutions going to, let's put it that way, IAM or identity access management tools, another network traffic analysis tools that are available. Well, it's slightly too much for one analyst. And based on my own practical experience from the past, the tool only helps you to a certain point, but it doesn't really replace that particular person. It is an enabler, but it doesn't replace the person. So considering all that, there's a variety of tools that definitely help, but it takes a lot of time to get handle of those, to understand how they operate in the most efficient way and maximize the value.
And if I look at the everyday job, then definitely we are using different tools, commercial and also open source tools. And I see the rise of open source tools, and also what has big impact for SOC development is definitely cloud-based tools. So this is something very important, and usually it's very hard to integrate into the workflows or processes because cloud-based tools are outside of organization, and you have to think about how to implement into the workflows, how people can use it, access, and what data to share it. So it's not easy, but I see that this is a key factor in the future.
We also talked about the skills. Well, one great analyst needs to learn continuously and needs to improve his or her competencies on a daily basis. Something that brought you here, let's say, a year ago, doesn't really help you in the next year or two. So it's a constant process.
Indeed. And on that, perhaps you could expand on how to keep up with the analysts' skill sets. Are there any particular type of trainings or exercises that you would recommend that keep analysts fresh and alert?
Before jumping into the topic, I would say that the important skill what all SOCs need to have is hacker mindset. Because hacker needs to be like a lucky or they have to perform once. But we have to be right every time. So we need to work harder and be like 100 times more efficient they are, and think about intent that context. So I would say that hacker's mindset is very important. You can learn the skills, but and get trainings. That's very important. But you need to have hacker's mindset to understand actually about the bad actors and how they are thinking, what they are doing, what they are trying to do. And this is very important actually. And it takes time, and you need to be basically provide a good training also for your own people and explain this mentality.
Yes, that's correct. And it might sound a little bit oversimplification, but there's two types of training. One that is related to what Margus already mentioned, what I would call a healthy dose of paranoia, having the hacker mindset, and the other one is specific technical platform-based trainings. Either it's gaining new certificates or understanding how it actually works. So we combine those two. Plus, in addition to that, we also try to go through certain red teaming or blue teaming exercises to really test ourselves collectively.
Very well. Yes, our own experience at the EGA has also been that, of course, people are important. Some technical trainings are useful. Hacker mindset always a bonus, or call it hacker mindset. Paranoia, as you said it. I also see it as a constant curiosity that you don't become plain, so to say. You keep up the need to constantly be proactive and curious about the field, and then validate it all over exercises, a simulation in a lifelike live fire attack, and where teams or individuals, depending on exercise, then practice. That's very, very good, I guess, to know that EGA is on the same page with a leading telco company thinking here.
Absolutely, and maybe something to also remind our listeners. Again, it might sound as a cliche, but security is a process. It's a perception, it's a process, it's not an end state. So you might be secure today, but unless you have this, as you called, curiosity or a certain level of enthusiasm towards new ideas and understanding, then most probably you will be late tomorrow for certain incidents.
So we have talked a lot about the theory, but can you also bring some examples from the practice of an attack or a defense from the SOC perspective that really works?
We recently had a case where we detected anomaly, some suspicious activity that was related to using command and control software with the point of taking over certain processes. And if I told in the beginning that on average it takes up to 9 months to first identify the incident with the containment, then in that particular case it was solved in a matter of minutes. So I'm really proud of that.
That sounds exciting, and it sounds like a topic that we have to discuss in one of the future podcasts of the real-life stories of how the SOC, from your experience, has proved useful, and real-life stories of the bad actors that attack us. Let's stay tuned and think of new occasions to talk about this. Thank you very much for coming here today to share your views on the importance of SOCs, why the SOCs are on the rise, defining the topic and trying to have a sort of structured approach to what it means, a SOC, and whether it's useful to have it in-house or as a service. Thank you, and I would very much like to continue discussing these topics with you and other experts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by the eGovernance Academy. Tune in next time.